Mishkin, there is no bed, no blanket, only wet straw and a cold that breathes through the stone walls like something alive. You blink once, maybe twice, but the dark doesn't change. Your clothes are the kind of rough that rubs skin raw in the night, and your boots, if you can still call them boots, have collapsed into leather sacks stitched to your feet with filth. You're in a stable, not yours. The cow next to you doesn't like you. You hear it breathe slow and hateful. It smells like piss and dying hay. You're a merchant, sort of, in name, in paperwork. The ink of legitimacy still stains your hands, but that paper, your precious license, was probably lining someone's privy by now. That's how things go in the 14th century. Trade is blood. The documents just make the spilling easier. You rise reluctantly and feel something squish in your palm. You don't look. That's a trick of survival they won't teach you in the guilds. You're somewhere outside of Lüneburg. You remember the salt, the sulphurous clouds, the men with no teeth and too many rings. Salt merchants never blink. Maybe it's the fumes. Maybe it's what they've seen. Your last trade went badly. Not because the goods were wrong, because you were too late, or too early, or because someone else wanted it more. Timing is currency here. So is betrayal. You've been beaten before. You've been tied to carts, left in ditches, stripped naked for a barrel of iron nails. But this time was quiet. No robbery. Just a warning. A few words in Latin carved into your wagon in chalk. You didn't recognize the language until a priest whispered it to you in passing non iterum. Not again. Funny how a threat sounds worse in God's tongue. The mud has teeth in it, sharp things, bits of broken pottery, iron and bone. Every medieval town is built on the graveyard of an older one. You think you hear something shift under the stable floor. Not a rat, something heavier. It's probably your imagination. You don't have much of that left though. The market opens soon. You've got to trade something, anything. And here's the twist, people don't just buy goods. They buy trust. And you've lost yours somewhere between Bruges and Lübeck. There's a man you owe coin to. You can't remember his name, only the sound he made while biting into a pear. You'd sold him cloth. Not good cloth. Mouldy, but passable. He didn't mind. He only cared that the bishop's niece wore it. That made it fashionable, until she bled through it. Then it was cursed. You still have the coins somewhere, but you haven't dared to spend them. They burn cold. A dog watches you through the stable slats. Not a real one. A carving nailed into the wood. Old pagan stuff. Protection, they say. You've seen it before. Every time the merchant who owned the place was dead within a month. You wonder why they keep carving it anyway. The sun is rising. You smell it before you see it baking dung-rotted barley and hot iron. The forge is already lit. Someone's working. The thud of hammer on steel feels too rhythmic, too calm. Like a lullaby for executioners. You pass a boy begging with his face covered in sores. You know what that means. Not plague, just the bread. Rye ergot. Hallucinations, fevers, madness. Cheap grain makes expensive ghosts. You toss him a copper anyway. You don't know why. Maybe you want to feel like you still have a soul. He bites the coin, then smiles. No child should smile like that. Your stall isn't really a stall. It's a pile of boards you nail together each morning and pray won't collapse. You sell whatever you have, nails, wool, salt, sometimes leeches, when you can steal them from the barber's basin. Across from you, a woman sells apples that shine like they've been polished with lamb fat. You know she poisons every third one. Keeps suspicion down. Keeps the ratios consistent. She's never caught. You tried to warn a priest once. He choked on one. They blamed you. You set up. Your fingers bleed from hammering splinters into place. You've wrapped them in strips of old invoice parchment. There's something poetic about bleeding into unpaid debt. A noble passes. His boots are clean. That's the part that terrifies you. Clean boots mean he's never walked anywhere worth fearing. Men like that send others, and they don't smile. Smiling is for the powerless. He stops, looks at your goods, takes a salted fish, says nothing, walks on. You don't ask for payment. You just nod like a dog. That's what you are. A merchant in the Middle Ages, a hound with a ledger and a limp. The woman beside you offers him an apple. He takes it. She doesn't smile either. You wonder if he'll make it to sundown. You wonder if he deserves to. You sell 2 sacks of oats. One is mostly weevils. You don't mention that. The buyer doesn't ask. He's blind in one eye and limps from an old war wound. His wife smells like burnt garlic. You hate the sound she makes when she counts coins. A monk approaches. You tense. He holds up a wooden cross and a sealed letter. You know what this is. Tithes for the church. 10%. Or everything. Depends on his mood. He says he's come collecting for St. Erasmus. You remember Erasmus, patron saint of merchants, and also of stomach pain. You give him a sack of rye and a bottle of vinegar. He asks for your name. You lie. He nods, walks on. You breathe. For now. At the end of the day, your profits are a joke. 3 silver pennies, 1 bent, a button made of bone, and a scrap of cloth you don't recognize. You tuck it into your coat anyway. A merchant keeps everything, even things he shouldn't, especially those. The stable's full now. You share it with 2 drunks, a pregnant mule, and a man with no nose. They say he lost it to frostbite, or sin, or syphilis. You don't ask. You lie back down. Try to sleep. The straw is still wet, and so is the thing beneath your head. You don't lift it, not yet. You dream of coins, not wealth, not power. Just the clink. The sound of silver against stone. The way it echoes. How it keeps going even after the coin stops moving. That's what you want. A life that echoes. But dreams cost too much, and the debt is due. You wake to the sound of metal scraping wood. The man with no nose is sharpening something, a rusted hook, bent in 2 places, stained black at the tip. He doesn't say a word. He just looks at you and smiles with more teeth than he should have. You take that as a good morning. Today your purse is heavy, not from coin, from consequence. You count 11 groats, a few farthings, a single florin so dull it might as well be lead. And tucked into the purse's inner seam, wrapped in old cloth, is the relic. You don't like touching it. The thing is small, jagged, dark. They told you it was a finger bone from St. Cuthbert. They were lying. Saints don't rot that way. But people believe what they pay to believe. And a relic, even a false one, sells better than truth. You traded a year's worth of salt for that lie. Now you need it to lie for you. The coin is a tool, a weapon, a disease, you know. Its weight, its scent, its taste. Yes, you've tasted coins, haven't we all? That faint coppery tang, like blood, like rust, like betrayal. You step into the street. There's already a body hanging from the market gate. Not fresh, not old, somewhere in between. A sign is nailed to his chest, Mercator Falsus, false merchant. That could mean anything: underweight goods, unpaid dues, or simply failing to bribe the right man at the right time. You keep your eyes down. Coin or corpse. That's the choice most days. And even the corpses are taxed. At the edge of the market square you hear the familiar sound of deals being struck. It's not voices that give it away. It's silence. The pauses, the waiting, the pregnant quiet before a price is named. That's where the real tension lives. You approach a familiar face. Godric the Fuller. A man who smells like wet wool and misplaced confidence. He once drowned his apprentice for miscounting shears. Claimed it was guild discipline. He owes you 3 shillings. You ask. He laughs. Your fish rotted, he says. It had worms. You didn't sell him fish. You sold him nails. But the worms, that's metaphor. You nod. You smile. You walk away. You'll get nothing from him today, maybe ever. You pass a woman selling candles shaped like saints, wax and false hope. She dips them herself using mold stolen from a monastery that burned down last winter. People say it was lightning. You know better. Lightning doesn't leave claw marks. A man bumps into you. You instinctively clutch your purse, not because you care about the coin, but because it's all you have. Even the relic is worth more than your name. You whisper a curse after him. He doesn't turn around. You check your goods, 4 jars of honey smuggled from France, 3 yards of Flemish cloth dyed with crushed insects, a box of peppercorns, each one worth more than a day's labor. And yet you feel poor, not because of what you lack, because of what you know. You know that coin is rot, that every piece of silver passed hand to hand carries skin cells, blood, and intentions. That some coins never leave their owners because they're buried with them, stuffed into mouths or nailed into walls to keep demons out. You've held those coins. You spent them. Once you bought a child's silence with one. He never spoke again. You reached the booth. Not yours was taken. By someone with more coin, more friends, more everything. Now you're at the edge near the dung carts next to a man selling counterfeit communion wafers. He smiles at you. Blessings, brother, he says. You nod. Your relic might come in handy after all. A noblewoman approaches. Her dress is a tapestry of shame, fine silks, too much perfume, and sleeves hiding bruises. She eyes your pepper. How much, she asks. You give her the price. She doesn't blink. She buys 3. Doesn't haggle. Which means it isn't for her. You don't ask who she's poisoning. It's better not to know. Across the square, a beggar is dragged from the alley. He's missing a hand. Not from punishment, from theft. They cut it off wrong. You can tell. Too high on the arm. Sloppy. He screams something about debt, then silence. No one listens. You remember the first time someone offered you a counterfeit coin. It was gold. Beautiful. Too beautiful. You knew instantly. It was too light, too warm. It didn't feel right. You took it anyway. You spent it on bread. The baker found out. He didn't blame you. He blamed his daughter. Said she'd cursed the dough. Burned her with hot tongs. You never went back. Now you examine every coin like a surgeon. You tap them, listen to the ring, feel the bite between teeth. Real silver sings. Fake silver screams. Sometimes they're the same. You sell a jar of honey to a priest. He doesn't look you in the eye. You wonder what he hides under that robe. Probably not piety. The sun passes overhead like a dying candle. You realize your cloak smells like smoke. You forgot about the fire last week, the one that ate 5 homes. Merchants were blamed. You were blamed, not directly but enough. That's why your store was moved. You're not trusted. You're tainted. You sell your last item to a boy with black teeth. He doesn't speak, just hands you coin. You don't check it until later. It's a game piece, a carved stone disc, worthless. You laugh. One of your 3 permitted laughs today. The other 2 already used up on survival. You pack up. No silver, no profit. Just wait. And the whisper of something moving in your purse. You know what it is, the relic. It wants to be sold. or buried, or forgotten. But you can't. Coin or corpse. Tonight you might be both. You leave the square before sunset. That's the trick, don't wait for the bells. When they ring, the wolves come out. Not the kind with fur, though you've seen those two bold as butchers. No, the real predators wear boots and badges. Militiamen, bailiffs, night watchers. All teeth, no eyes. The roads outside the town are slick with rain, and the runoff of commerce horse blood butchers waste. The grey slurry of washed-out sins. You walk carefully. The mud here doesn't just swallow boots, it swallows memory. Many have gone missing in ditches like these, their names remembered only in unpaid ledgers and whispered threats. You adjust your pack. It's lighter than it should be. But you carry more than goods now. You carry knowledge, and knowledge doesn't float. The road is lined with crucifixes, not for prayer, for display. Warnings. One has a scarecrow tied to it dressed in a merchant's robe stuffed with spoiled grain. A joke, you suppose, a cruel one. You know the symbolism: trade dies here. Trade hangs here. The next signpost is stained red, not painted, just stained. You don't ask what with, you just keep walking. The trees lean in, the road is narrow, cart width. Not enough room to turn around if something blocks your path. And that's the point. Roads like this are designed to trap. A traveller approaches, no horse, no cart, just a cloak low and slow. You see the glint of steel under the hood. You weigh your options, greet him, run, kill or die. He nods as you pass, nothing more. But something in you itches like you've just survived something without knowing what. You quicken your pace. The road forks. One way leads toward the river crossing. The other leads to the abbey. You hate choices like this. They feel too much like invitations. As if someone somewhere wants you to pick wrong. You go left, toward the river. You've traded there before. The ferryman knows you, or did, if he's still alive. There are hoof prints in the mud. Deep ones, fresh. That means someone rich, someone armed, or someone fleeing. You hope it's the latter. It's always easier to deal with fear than power. The path begins to flood. You feel the chill of it first through your boots, then your bones. The water is ankle deep and moving slow like it's thinking. You wade through. You've done worse. Once you crossed a marsh filled with the bones of crusaders. You know this because you found a helmet still full of teeth. You kept one. Not for luck, for proof. No one believes what merchants see, but they always believe what they buy. A branch snaps behind you, not close, but not far enough. You reach the river as dusk settles like ash. The ferry's gone. You stare at the post, two wooden teeth jutting from the bank, their ropes cut clean. You're not surprised, just tired. There's a man there sitting on a rock. Not the ferryman, not anyone you know. He's humming, no tune, just the sound of absence. His hands are in his lap. One is wrapped in linen, the other isn't there at all. He sees you, nods, points upriver. Next crossing's a mile. His voice is cracked, like old wood, like promises. You nod back. You don't ask what happened to his hand. You already know. He tried to keep something the road wanted. The mile feels longer than it should. The sky bruises purple and the forest presses in. Sounds get bigger, closer. Each bird call could be a scream. Each rustle could be fate. You reach the bridge. It's still standing. That's the first miracle today. You don't rush. You walk slowly. Bridges deserve respect, especially this one. You've heard the stories. The toll isn't always coin. Sometimes it's weight. Sometimes it's name. You cross. Halfway over you stop. There's a mark on the wood charred into the planks, a merchant symbol. Not one you use, not one you know. Below it, a smear of something dark. Could be pitch, could be blood, could be both. You step over it. You don't want to know. Across the river, the land is different, quieter, wrong. The road splits again. You take the northern branch, toward the mining town. There's always coin there. Dirty coin. Desperate coin. The kind you can mold. The wind carries the smell of burning hair. You pretend it's chimney smoke. You reach a village by moonlight. Not marked on your map. Not mentioned by travelers. But it's there. And that's enough. The houses are wrong. Too low. Too wide. Like animals huddled against something bigger. No signs, no lights. But there's a market square. Always is. You enter it. Empty. Except for one store. A man stands behind it. Face hidden in shadow. Goods wrapped in cloth. He gestures. You approach. You look down. What he's selling isn't meat or cloth or spice. It's coins. Old coins. Coins from cities long dead empires buried kings who died screaming. And you know everyone. Because you've traded them, hoarded them, lost them. You pick one up. It's warm. Too warm. He nods. You leave 3 groats. He says nothing. Just watches as you walk away. Back onto the road. And into the dark. You don't look back. Not because you're brave. Because you've learned. On the roads of the Middle Ages, you don't survive by courage. You survive by forgetting. You forget what you saw. You forget what you paid. You forget how warm that coin still is in your hand. You don't sleep that night. You lie under a wagon near the mining town. The stars above are smothered by soot and smoke. Somewhere someone is hammering long after midnight. Not blacksmith work mining cages, most likely. The kind that creak when lowered into holes that never end. In the distance wolves howl. Except those aren't wolves. Wolves don't call out names. You grip your purse tighter. Your hand is shaking. The coin you bought, the one from the faceless merchant, burns faintly in your palm. You should have tossed it in the river. But you didn't. You want to know who minted it. You want to know what empire fell so this thing could be forgotten. You want to know why it feels like it's watching you. By dawn your fingers are blistered. The miners begin to rise. Their eyes are sunken, their lungs rattling. You recognize a few from past tradesmen who would barter bread for mercury, who would sell their boots before their hope. One once traded his wife's wedding veil for lamp oil. You still have it. The town is iron. Everything smells like blood and rust. And everyone wants something. You set up your board near the slag heaps. You don't bother with polish. No banners, no cries of wares. In places like this, too much confidence is a death sentence. A boy approaches, young 12 at most. His hands are raw from mining tools. "What's this?" he asks, pointing to your peppercorns. "Fire seeds," you whisper. He stares, then nods like he believes you. Children believe everything. That's their blessing, and your business. He offers a single dented coin. You take it. It's not real. It's lead-shaped into a florin. A forgery. He watches to see if you'll strike him. You smile instead. You keep the coin. Sometimes a lie is worth more than the truth. Another man approaches. This one has only one eye and half an ear. A cart scar splits his neck like a question mark. You sold him onions once when you knew they were spoiled. He ate them anyway. Said they kept the demons away. Now he wants vinegar. You give him some. He pays in silence. and a bottle of something thick and red. Wine, he says. You don't drink it. You sell it before midday to a woman who smells of lime and rage. She doesn't ask what's in the bottle. She just wants it to hurt someone. By noon, the winds shift. The mine foreman arrives, fat cruel breathing like a forge. He's draped in fur and dirt, and his eyes are the color of burned coal. He demands your name. You give a false one. He doesn't blink. Tax, he says. How much? He shrugs. More than you have. You offer a jar of oil, a cloth from Flanders, and a story. The story is about a relic that never rots. He likes that. You lie well enough to live. He leaves, and you stay. That's the deal. The air grows thicker. Miners begin to limp home, coughing up pink foam. That's what they call iron fever. It's not iron, it's rot in the lungs. But names don't matter when death is this predictable. A man collapses near your stall. You don't move, no one does. They let him twitch. They let him still. Then, a thin woman drags his body behind a barrel and begins to strip him. Boots first, then belt, then anything stitched. You watch. She doesn't look at you, but she knows you're there. And she doesn't stop. You understand. There are no laws here. Only weight, only worth. You pack your goods before dusk. This place eats too much, and you're running out of lies. As you leave, you pass a line of miners waiting to descend. One meets your gaze. His eyes are red. Not from smoke, from something else. He presses something into your hand. A coin, melted, warped. The face is gone. No king, no crest. Just an empty oval like a scream with no sound. You look up to ask him why, but he's already gone. You leave that coin in the dirt. Even you have limits. You take the southern road, the one lined with willow trees. They say hanging men make the best fertilizer. The roots here grow fast, too fast. You see one willow wrapped in cloth, a merchant's robe. You keep walking. Your pack is heavier now, not from goods, from memory. You smell fire again, and something sweet. You look up. The sky is the wrong color. You've been in towns like this before, towns that forget they exist. Towns where trade stops being trade and becomes something else. Where markets turn into feeding grounds and every price is a kind of wound. You quicken your pace. You wonder what it costs to leave. You already know. But you walk anyway. And the coins in your purse start to whisper. You tell yourself it's the wind. You always tell yourself it's the wind. You reach the next city by moonlight. Stone walls loom like judgment crowned with rusted iron spikes and old bones of birds that never left. A gate guards the entrance, not open, not closed, just ajar, enough to let in hope or let it out. You step forward. No one stops you. You don't decide if that's a good sign. Cities are supposed to be safe. That's the myth sold to peasants and traders alike. Walls mean order. Walls mean protection. Walls mean someone will see you die. But a merchant knows better. Walls are just cliffs turned inside out. Inside the streets stink of piss horses and boiling glue. The cobblestones are slippery with rotten cabbage, and the dreams of those who couldn't sell fast enough. You find a corner near the baker's alley. Not because the bread is good, it's not, but because the rats are too fat to move quickly. That gives you an edge. You set up quietly. No cart, just a crate and cloth. On it, a spread of your lesser wares, wax thread-dried thyme, a few iron nails stolen from a collapsed bridge. Behind the cloth under your cloak is the real stock foreign powder that burns blue when lit. You don't know what it's made of. You don't want to know. A man approaches. His face is smooth, too smooth. No beard, no hair, not even eyebrows. That's never a good sign. He asks you for laudanum. You say you don't trade poison. He says he wasn't asking. You give him a small flask of vinegar and tell him it's from Venice. He sniffs it, nods, leaves a silver coin. You know the coin. You were paid it once before in another city by another man who wore too much perfume and walked without sound. He was dead 2 days later, or worse. You pocket it anyway. The baker starts yelling. Something about the price of flour. Something about corruption. Something about his missing daughter. You pretend not to hear. Later you sell him a jar of spoiled honey and tell him it helps with sleep. He doesn't ask whose sleep. He just pays. At dusk you pack up and follow the scent of roasted meat. Not pork, not beef. The tavern's fire burns low. A pot hangs above it. No one stirs it. You take a seat in the corner. The chair rocks. You don't mind. Instability is familiar. A man plays lute near the hearth. His fingers tremble. You recognize the tune. It's from the coast, a dirge sung for drowned merchants. You don't sing along. Someone offers you ale. You decline. Not because you're cautious. Because you saw the brewer sharpening his knife earlier. You rent a room upstairs. One with a door. No lock. It's all you can afford. The window overlooks the street. You see 3 boys chasing a pig. The pig wears a mask. A real one, leather stitched with glass eyes. You don't ask. Below a procession moves past. Hooded men with bells. No chants, no torches. Just the sound of metal against metal. The smell of wax and regret follows them. You bolt the door with your pack. Not that it will help. In the night you hear someone try the handle. Once, then again, then not at all. You don't sleep. You count coins. You listen to them breathe. You know how cities work. Behind every trade is a trick. Behind every trick is a secret. And behind every secret is a corpse. Sometimes more than one. At dawn, you go to the magistrate's hall. You need a license. At least the idea of one. The clerk smells of ink and dust. His eyes are filmed with cataracts, but his hands are sharp. Name, he asks. You give one, not yours. He dips a quill. Bribe, he adds without looking up. You slide him 2 coins and a folded page torn from a book of psalms. He sniffs the page. Smells authentic, he mutters. You receive a seal, not official, but red enough to trick most eyes. You're legal now, sort of. Back in the market you try something bold. You sell paper. Just paper. Folded into charms. Dipped in ash. Drawn with patterns stolen from a madwoman in Ghent. You call them plague shields. They sell faster than salt. One buyer kisses your hand. You nearly flinch. Not because of affection. Because she's missing 3 fingers. Children begin gathering near your stall. They sing. Not a song you know, but one that makes your skin feel like it's trying to crawl away. You close early. The streets are louder tonight. There's talk of a heretic, a merchant, someone who sold relics that wept blood. You sold one like that once. It wasn't blood, just old wine and pig's fat. But people believed. People always believe, until they don't. You move through back alleys now. The main roads are for the brave and the doomed. You hear a cry. You don't look. A hand grabs your sleeve. You turn slowly. It's the baker's wife. Eyes red, mouth wrong. She says he slept. Then she says nothing else. You leave her standing there. At the gate, a guard stops you. Asks for your seal. You show it. He nods, then holds out his hand. You drop a coin into it. He squeezes it. Smiles. Your pack is lighter now. Your conscience too. You leave the city. Behind you, a bell rings once. Then again. Then again. You don't ask why, because you already know. You walk until your legs ache, and then farther still. The city disappears behind you like smoke in a bottle there, but unreachable. You don't look back. You never do. There's nothing for a merchant behind. Only debt, and names spoken through locked doors. The road cuts through low hills. The wind here smells of charcoal and mint. A strange pairing, too clean. As if something was scrubbed too thoroughly. You know that scent. It's what they use to cover rot. A stone mile marker juts from the ground. On it, someone has carved a sigil, not Latin, not Greek. You don't recognize the script, but your skin tightens all the same. Warnings come in many tongues. Ahead, a traveler waits at a crossroads, not walking, not resting, just standing. He wears a red sash. You stop. He doesn't move. You nod once. He raises 2 fingers. You nod again. That's how merchants greet each other, when the road might belong to neither. He steps aside. You pass. No words, just a pact. You know his face now, and he knows yours. That's dangerous. You walk until sunset and find a village nestled in fog. Low roofs, shuttered windows, smoke from peat fires curling into the grey like whispers escaping closed mouths. There is no inn, just a guild house. Guilds are safer than churches. Not by much. You knock. A man opens the door. His nose is broken in 3 places. He smells of tar and basil. You trade, he asks. You nod. He lets you in. Inside it's warm, uncomfortably so. The air sticks to your lungs. A fireplace roars too hot for the size of the room. The stone walls sweat. There are 6 men seated around a table. Only one speaks. He says, declare. You do. Items, weights, intentions. All lies. Except the pepper. Always be honest about the pepper. One man laughs. Another writes. A contract is placed before you. No names, just marks. You make yours with a piece of charcoal. Your finger blackens. One of them licks the paper. They all nod. You're accepted, but not welcomed. A guild isn't protection. It's containment. Like being locked in a burning room with others holding matches. No one wants to be the first to light up, but someone always does. They give you a space in the market. It's near the tannery. Everything smells like boiled skin. You sell 2 jars of dye, a set of needles, and half a spool of thread made from human hair. You don't tell the buyer. You think she knows. By midday, a boy steals a silver ring from your board. You chase. You catch him behind the baker's kiln. His hands shake. He says nothing. He wears no shoes. You take the ring back, then give him a slice of salted pear. He runs. You know he'll die this winter, but not today. A scribe approaches near evening. His robes are ink-stained, his fingers burned from wax. He offers you parchment, not to sell, to copy. You recognize the script, the same marks from the stone mile marker. You ask him where it's from. He smiles toothless, says nothing. Leaves you with 5 sheets and a promise of payment if returned in ink. You have no ink. You use blood, yours, just a drop, just enough to complete the first symbol. That night something moves under your bed. You don't check. It's better not to. The guild offers stew, thin grey and full of things that used to be animals. You eat it anyway. You need the strength. Tomorrow is inspection. A man will weigh your goods, test your scales, count your breath. If he doesn't like what he finds, you'll be fined. If he likes what he finds, you'll be fined anyway. You've met these men before. They smile, but only with their knives. The morning is cold. You lay out your goods in perfect order, every weight exact, every measure honest, for once. The inspector arrives. He doesn't speak. He simply nods, picks up a jar of cloves, sniffs it. You bought these in Ghent, he says. You nod. You bought them in Krakow. He sets them down. Fair. He marks your board with chalk. A white X, not red. That's good. Maybe. Afterward, you sit alone in the market. Your coins are fewer now. Your purse is quiet. But you are not dead, and that counts for something. At twilight, a woman approaches. Her eyes are milky, blind. She carries a box wrapped in linen. She sets it on your table. Trade, she asks. You nod. You open the box. Inside coins. Dozens of them. Each with a hole through the center. You lift one. It feels light. Wrong. You look back at her. But she's already walking away. You close the box. You don't count them. Some things shouldn't be counted. The next day, you try to spend one. The baker recoils, refuses. You shouldn't have those, he says. You ask why. He tells you what they're called. Witch pennies, used for offerings, for bindings, for curses. You smile. You sell 3 to the tanner before noon. He pays in leather, the kind still soft with flesh. You stay in the guild house 2 more days. Then you leave. No one says goodbye. No one ever does. The road waits, and it knows your name. You arrive in port under a coughing sky. The wind of the sea doesn't cool you, it flays. Salt and soot whip your face as you step onto the quay, and already your boots are slick with something that isn't just water. It clings, stinks of brine tar and rotted cargo. You squint toward the ships. High-sided cogs, their sails slack with mildew. Some bear flags half-torn, miscolored, hastily repainted. Most don't. They've long since stopped asking for permission. A dock worker eyes you like meat. You nod. He spits. Welcome to trade by sea. The merchant's dream is always the same spices from the east silks that shimmer unnaturally in the light medicines that claim to cure the soul. But dreams cost flesh, and everything you want lies 2 ships and 3 bribes away. You show your coin to the harbour master. He's missing 3 fingers, probably eaten by rats or rivals. You don't ask. He pockets your silver points at a barge painted the colour of old wounds. You step aboard. The deck creaks beneath you like something that wants to drown. The captain is drunk. The crew is thinner than their shadows. One of them hasn't blinked in an hour. Another scratches endlessly at a scab that isn't healing. You don't think it ever will. They don't ask what you're carrying. They already know pepper. The boat leaves at dawn. You sleep among barrels of salted fish and something in a sack that moans once before going silent. 3 days at sea. The sky doesn't change. You pass floating debris on the 2nd day, a splintered mast, a child's shoe, a bloated horse. No one speaks. On the 3rd night, a sailor goes missing. The captain says he fell overboard. The others don't seem convinced. You aren't either. But what can you do? You're not a priest. You're not a judge. You're a merchant. You sell cloves and look the other way. The port you reach is barely a settlement. More bones than buildings. You've come to trade for spice, real spice, the kind that must cross deserts in waxed urns, guarded by men whose eyes don't blink. A contact meets you by the fire pit. Her skin is tattooed with symbols you once saw on the belly of a dead monk. She doesn't speak. She holds out a hand. You give her your pouch. She weighs it, bites a coin, then walks away. You follow. She leads you past the edge of the village into a tent of oiled leather. Inside, bundles of cinnamon, dried star anise and black pepper sealed in sheepskin. The smell is intoxicating. You offer trade. She nods. You give her brass tools needlepoint and a tiny carved idol from the ruins near Carcassonne. It's missing an eye. She seems to like that. The exchange is silent. She adds one last item to your pile, a spice you've never seen. Crimson threads curled like veins. You hesitate. She smiles, points to your chest. You nod. She presses it into your palm. It burns. That night the crew celebrates. One sailor eats too much of the crimson spice. He begins to scream. His tongue swells. His eyes burst. No one blames you, but they look at you differently now. You're not just a merchant anymore. You're a carrier. The captain gives you a nod you don't like. Not respect, fear. The sea is calm on the way back. Too calm. You reach the first harbour under heavy fog. The bells don't ring. That's not good. The city is closed. Quarantine. You try the next port. Closed. Third, closed. There's talk of sickness, of red boils and black tongues. No one says plague. They don't have to. The spy still sits in your hold, and the sailor's body is still aboard. He never stops screaming. Even now, sometimes you swear you hear it. Finally, one port opens, but only to unload the cargo. You're not allowed to disembark. No one is. The goods are offloaded by gloved men in waxed robes. They don't speak. They don't meet your eyes. You sail away lighter, but not freer. You're paid in coin, yes, but also something else. Every night since you dream of the crimson threads, growing, curling, twisting through your teeth. You bite down and taste iron. Back on land you go to market. You sell saffron to a butcher who grins with too many teeth. You trade cinnamon to a midwife whose breath smells like graves. And the pepper always sells. One noble offers you his daughter's hand for a barrel of it. You decline. He doesn't take it well. 2 days later your cart is burned. You sleep in a ditch. You tell yourself it's fine. Just a bad season. But you know better. Spice is blood now. You carry it like a wound. And the wound never closes. The bells toll in a rhythm you don't understand. Low, long, deliberate. Not for worship. Not for weddings. Not even for death. No, this is a call for money. And you merchants are expected to answer. You stand at the doors of a stone church so large it warps the sky above it. A cross leans awkwardly over the arch. Something ivy or veins crawls up the masonry. Inside it smells like melted wax and wet cloth. Saints look down at you with hollow eyes and gold halos. Their hands are raised in blessing or accusation. A priest glides toward you. Not walks, glides. His robe never brushes the floor, yet the sound of footsteps echoes anyway. He doesn't greet you, just extends a hand. You place a pouch of coins in it. He doesn't count. He doesn't need to. You've paid this tax before. The holy tax, the protection tax, the tax that buys you a booth near the church courtyard at market, and just enough favor to keep your shop unburned during the next festival. But today his fingers linger. You trade with the East, he says. Not a question. A statement. You nod. He smiles. Then you understand value. He leads you into a side chapel, darker, quieter, older than it should be. A single candle burns beside a relic, the finger of some saint shriveled and curled like a dead spider. Miracles are expensive, the priest whispers. And just like that, you're buying one. You're not sick, not cursed, not damned yet. But prevention costs less than resurrection. You purchase a blessing for your next journey. You don't know what it does, neither does he. He mumbles Latin over your head. Something about deliverance, something about fire. The candle flickers violently. You smell burning hair, yours. He doesn't apologize. You leave lighter by 6 gold coins, and heavier by a thought you don't believe in God. Not really, but the church believes in you. They believe in your wallet, your roots, your secrets, and that makes them dangerous. They call themselves shepherds. You've seen their knives. In the next town, a friar corners you during a storm, his wet, shivering eyes too wide. They say the bishop eats children, he hisses, and I believe them. You give him a copper for his trouble. He kisses your hand. 3 days later, you pass a pyre. Something human crackles inside. The smoke smells like pork. At the next abbey, you sell imported incense to monks who won't meet your gaze. They burn it in massive copper cauldrons, thick smoke rolling through the chapel like fog over a battlefield. They say it purifies, but the locals whisper it hides screams. One novice tells you the abbey once bought a shipment of myrrh that arrived packed with human teeth. You smile. So do they. You both pretend it was a joke. It wasn't. Later that night, you kneel in a rented pew, staring up at the crucifix. Christ's eyes seem wet, not with mercy, with disappointment, or maybe pity. You've sold sugar to brothels, linen to surgeons, sulfur to alchemists who think the devil lives in glass tubes. But nothing makes you feel filthier than trading with priests, because they always smile when they take your money, and sometimes they don't blink. You sleep in a church-owned inn that night. The pillow smells like mildew. There's a scratch on the wall above your headboard. A single line. Someone was counting the nights. You add a second, just in case. In the morning, the abbot visits your stall personally. He's fat, red-faced, bejeweled. He wants ambergris for divine purposes. You nod. Ambergris stinks. It's whale vomit. Precious, rare. So expensive it's considered currency in 3 cities. You give him a vial. He sniffs it and moans. You resist the urge to be sick. He pays in papal indulgences, printed slips of paper that say you're going to heaven. You try not to laugh, but part of you keeps them, just in case. After all the plague is creeping west again, you've heard whispers of blackened tongues and eyes like split grapes. No god, they say, has shown up, except in the counting houses, where monks weigh silver with fingers that tremble not from age but hunger, and not for food. You visit a monastery rumored to house the devil himself. That's how good their honey is. Sweet, thick, laced with something you can't place. 1 spoonful, and you see colors that don't exist. The monks refuse payment in coin. They want knowledge. So you tell them about a spice trader in Venice who claims to see angels in mirrors. They nod. They give you 2 jars. You leave before dusk. You never ask what's in it. The honey smells faintly of blood. You keep it anyway. There's profit in madness. You wonder, do the saints ever scream? Behind all that glass and gold, do they claw to get out? 1 stained glass figure watches you as you leave the next village. His eyes are blue. Your eyes are brown. You didn't notice that before. Back in the market, a boy with no tongue begs for a crust of bread. His arms are branded with a cross. Someone punished him for blasphemy. Or maybe he just couldn't pay. You hand him a coin. He stares at it like it's poison, then runs. You don't blame him. You would too if you could. But merchants don't run. They walk slowly toward the flame, with coin in hand and prayers they don't believe. You wake to shouting, not from war or fire or fear, from business. Voices rise and clash like blades across the marketplace. The square is already teeming. Steam from boiling broth hangs low, mixing with smoke and spiced air until it clings to your skin like damp wool. You haven't even opened your stall yet, but your name has already been spoken by a man you don't recognize. A butcher with more rings than fingers. He sells pepper from the coast, he growls, but it smells like dung. You smile thinly. Of course it does. That's how real pepper is cured. He knows this. You both know this. But truth and trade are strangers. You set your table slowly. Let the crowd gather. Let the rumors fester. The butcher's shouting shifts to a whisper. A twitch in the crowd tells you who's being believed. You've brought saffron today. Real saffron. Or close enough. A child approaches. Wide eyes. Filthy sleeves. You hand her a dried fig. She'll talk about you now. She's your best advertisement, honest hunger. You sell before the hour bell even tolls. A merchant's hands are never idle. Even while talking, you're weighing, slicing, measuring. You adjust your scales with the flick of a nail. One barley grain difference and your profits vanish. You once saw a man's hand nailed to his own scale for cheating. He didn't scream. He passed out before the second nail, but his stall was empty by evening. No one mourns a dishonest merchant. No one admits we all are. A woman approaches next, her veil thick with perfume, nobility, or someone desperate to pretend. She asks for clove, but her eyes flick toward your satchel. Ah. You nod and bring out the small wrapped packet. Not spice, letters, coded, illegal, treasonous. You didn't read them. You don't need to. You sell more than wares. You sell silence. Passage, possibility. Her fingers tremble as she pays. That's good. Fear means value. The market is a stage. You don't sell goods. You sell illusions. Origin stories. A whiff of Constantinople. A rumor of Samarkand. No one wants truth. They want exotic lies with just enough danger to be delicious. You're halfway through your day when you notice the shadow. It's been there too long, lurking beside the fishmonger's cart, watching unmoving. Not a customer, not a thief. Worse, a tithe collector. You recognize him by his boots too clean for this place, and the pouch at his hip, royal seal stamped in lead. You nod. He nods back. No words. Later you'll pay. Not in coin, in information. He wants names, prices, routes, and you'll give them. Not because you're loyal, but because you're replaceable. And you hate that. You remember a day last spring when you caught a boy trying to swap your saffron with dried calendula. Cheaper, similar color, almost the same. You didn't call the guards. You smiled. You hired him. He works your stall now. Steals from you sometimes. You let him. Trust is an expense. But control, that's an investment. A beggar leans into your booth offering a smile with no teeth. You give him an apple, but you feel nothing. Mercy is for people who can afford it. You can't. Not today. Not with the crowd thickening and that noblewoman's coin still warm in your pouch. You slip away at noon, ducking behind the dye seller's canopy, cutting through the alley that smells of boiled wool and piss. There you swap out your satchel. Different goods, different lies. Back to the stall before anyone notices. This is the secret. Merchants don't sell what they have. They sell what you think they have. That's how you make a fortune from a bag of dirt and a well-placed rumor. Once you sold dragon bone to a knight's physician. It was pig bone soaked in vinegar. He paid with a silver dagger. You still carry it, for luck or revenge. A child screams, not out of pain. Excitement. A puppet show. You glance over. The story is familiar saints and serpents and sin. The crowd eats it up. Just like they eat your spoiled cinnamon and powdered gypsum, passed off as chalk. No one wants to know. They just want to believe, and belief is more profitable than proof. That evening, you pack your things slowly, count your coins, weigh your silence. The butcher is gone, his stall stripped bare. A trail of blood dots the stones. You hear he tried to shortchange a monk. Bad business. You'll use his stall tomorrow. His name too, if needed. That's the trick. Name's a currency. Yours is long gone. The one you use now belonged to a man who drowned in Bordeaux 5 years ago. You still have his ring. You sleep in the back of a spice cart, nose filled with the stench of cumin and dying oranges. You dream of numbers, not people, not places. Just weight, length, yield, value. Numbers don't lie, but they do fade. You wonder what they'll weigh you for when you die, what your flesh will fetch per pound. You'll make a tidy sum, especially the tongue. They always want the tongue. You count your breath in copper this morning. 1 exhale, 1 lost coin. Every breath fogs the glass you've rigged to reflect your stall. Your own invention, a polished disc from Venice traded at a price you never disclosed. You use it not for vanity, but for survival. Reflections don't lie. Your real face is not the one you show customers. Today a smell walks ahead of the crowd. A weight, something sour, something final. The plague has returned. You hear it in the silence. Markets don't go quiet unless something starts dying too quickly to hide. The bells are absent. The hawker's cries are strained. The air feels afraid. You watch a child wander alone, face-flushed arms covered in red spots. No one touches her, not even her mother. You start to fold your stall, but then they arrive. They always do. Customers, more than before, because when the plague comes, so does profit. A monk in a black robe buys all your dried rosemary, not because he trusts it, but because someone else does. A housemaid offers you a family ring for 3 ounces of nutmeg. You suspect she stole it. You take it anyway. The dying will trade anything for comfort, or the illusion of it. You begin to reassemble your stall. You triple the prices. No one blinks. A woman coughs into her scarf, then buys every ounce of vinegar you have. Says she'll soak her rags in it to cleanse the air. You know it won't work, but she pays in silver. You keep the scarf when she drops it. Later you burn it behind the tannery. You remember another plague 7 years ago. You were younger, greedy, unprepared. You lost everything except a locked coffer you had buried beneath your rented stable. You dug it up last year. Inside was nothing but coins slick with rot. Coins and a finger bone you don't remember hiding. Now you're smarter. You sell plague remedies made from rosewater and chalk. You sell protective charms forged from tin and hope. You sell death insurance in the form of a lie. Some beg to be spared, some to be remembered. Most just want to die slower. A doctor buys a packet of cinnamon, then leans in close. There's a body cart coming, he says. You didn't hear it from me. You hear it anyway. Wooden wheels groaning under weight, flies before it, silence after. You avert your eyes but not your ears. You count the thuds as the bodies are dumped, one by one. 18. One coughs as it lands. They leave her anyway. You chew your lip until you taste copper. There's a man across the way selling blessed oil from a broken chalice. You almost admire his style, until you see him slip on the gloves before touching his own wares. Coward. That night your fever starts. Only a flicker, but your bones ache. Your sleep is filled with iron-colored clouds and children without eyes. In the dream, they trade your name for an ounce of blood. You wake shivering. You drink vinegar, chew cloves, whisper prayers you swore never to believe in. You get up and go back to your stall, because the dying don't stop buying. You wrap yourself in a new robe, charcoal grey with brass fasteners. Looks priestly, trustworthy. You adjust your display. The saffron is mostly crushed marigold. The myrrh is tree sap soaked in ash. Your best seller is plague bread baked with lavender and lies. Someone once told you death is the great equalizer. You disagree. Death is selective. It prefers the poor, the slow, the honest. You are none of those things. A noble steward arrives with a pouch heavy enough to drag a corpse. He wants you to supply the manor with cleansing incense. 40 rolls. You say yes. You don't have any. You will. You'll burn anything. Your neighbour, old martyr, with the cracked teeth and pigeon bones, doesn't open her stall today. By noon you smell her under the floorboards. You say nothing. By evening the priest visits. He buys wormwood and a small vial of quicksilver. He knows it's poison. He smiles anyway. You both understand. When you finally return home, if you can call a shutterless room above a butcher's stall home, you find a letter nailed to the door. It's not addressed to you. It never is. You burn it unopened. There's a knock. You don't answer. Another knock. You open knife in hand. It's the girl from the alley, the one you gave a fig. Her hands are blistered. She asks for help. You give her honey, salt, a kiss on the forehead. She weeps. You do not. In the morning you find her body curled by the stairs, still warm. You take her shoes. They fit. You go to market wearing them. No one notices. They only ask for balm and mercy and something to make the dying smell like roses. You sell them all 3. By sunset your coin pouch bursts and your nose bleeds. A single drop. It lands on your ledger. You leave it. It feels appropriate. The man with the lantern waits for you after dark. He doesn't knock, doesn't speak. Just stands there breathing slow, measured, like someone timing the end of your life. His eyes never rise from the satchel he carries. You recognize the emblem stitched into the leather, a quill snapping in half. You've seen that mark before. Last time the schoolmaster disappeared. This time it's you. He hands you a sealed parchment and vanishes into the dark like he was never there. You don't open it. Not here. Not yet. You've learned the message reads you not the other way around. You climb to your rented room, light a tallow candle and break the seal. Inside is one name, yours, and a word written beneath it in ink the color of dried blood: seditio. Treason. You didn't speak against the crown. You never raised a hand. But you did something far worse. You wrote, you catalogued, and worst of all, you remembered. You've kept records for 10 years. Private ledgers of strange deaths, corrupt tithe collectors, missing children, grain hoarders, and the names of priests who bought girls like cattle. Not for justice, no. You never lied to yourself. You did it because someone needed to remember, and because knowledge, when handled correctly, is more profitable than spice. Now it's your noose. You hide the parchments beneath the floorboard, where the wood bows up like something wants out. You whisper their names one more time, not because it matters, but because forgetting them would make this pointless. Then you burn the letter. The smoke smells like old teeth. In the market the next morning, you speak to no one. You let the crowd pass through you like wind through a scaffold. You sell nothing. You watch. You see the scribes arrive in their dull blue robes. They speak in Latin, hands folded. One pauses too long in front of your stall. You don't blink. He moves on. But you understand now. It's not just selling that's dangerous. It's knowing. You remember a man named Harek from Danzig, a fellow trader. He could quote the price of pepper across 4 kingdoms. He could also name 3 bishops who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. He once told you the sharpest blade in Christendom is a whisper with a ledger behind it. He died choking on ink, literally. They found his body with his own records crammed into his throat. You wonder how many pages it took to silence him. Your own ink-stained hands start to itch. You make a choice. That night, you dig up the box again. Not the one with coins and plague dust, another hidden deeper under the bedrock of your silence. Inside every letter you were never brave enough to send. Every truth too dangerous to trade. You take them to the candle, but you don't burn them. You grind them down. Parchment into powder. Then slowly you mix them into oil, perfumed. You bottle it. Label it as holy anointing balm protection for the soul. You sell it all by noon. No one knows what they've bought. But someone somewhere will carry your truth on their skin. Maybe they'll read it. Maybe not. Maybe the message won't be seen until their corpse is bathed, and someone whispers, "What's this smell?" That's your plan now. Ink by flesh. Memory by accident. You write one last letter, this time addressed to no one. Just a name you invented, Sebastius, keeper of the dead accounts. You sign it with your real name, the one you haven't spoken since the famine. You fold it, sew it into your coat. If they find you, they'll find that too. Let them wonder. At Vespers, the same blue-robed scribe returns. This time, he buys nutmeg and asks about a monk you once knew. You say you never met him. He smiles. Pity. He spoke highly of you. You say nothing. He leaves you with a coin minted in a city that no longer exists. That night your window is open. You never opened it. You smell parchment and ash. You bolt the door. Slide a blade under your pillow. Sleep with one eye buried in dreams of burning libraries and women nailed to crosses of quills. The next day no one buys, no one speaks, and your stall is marked with chalk, a circle, a line through it, an old language. You scrub it off. But the wood beneath is bleached pale, as though the mark was never drawn, only revealed. You consider leaving, but where you've sold too much truth and too many lies to start again. So you do what merchants always do. You adapt. You change your name. Again, you change your wares. Now you sell blank parchment, clean quills, bottles of ink labeled for prayers only. People still buy. They always do. But they never ask who you are, and you never write anything down again. Except this, one final ledger, bound in flesh. The man who arrives at your stall isn't a man at all. Not really. He wears velvet lined with wolf fur hands, pale and soft, unscarred by labor or weather. But his eyes, those are the eyes of a butcher who's learned to smile. His guards stand back just far enough to say, "We aren't needed, unless we are." He says nothing at first, just holds out his hand, not for greeting, for tribute. You place a silver groat in his palm. He doesn't even glance at it. He drops it into his purse like it was always his. This is how taxation works now. There are no receipts, no ledgers, only memory and muscle. The crown calls it protection. You call it bleeding. Every month he returns. Every month the price rises. Sometimes it's coin. Sometimes it's Ventori. Once it was your best mule. Another time it was a girl who worked your booth. He liked the color of her hair. You never saw her again. You learned to stop asking questions. They say taxes are the price of civilization. But this is something older, more primal. This is tribute to a hungry god. You used to think you could outsmart it. Hide a portion of your coin beneath the cobbles. Falsify weights. Smuggle out profits in hollowed cabbages. That worked for a time. Until they hanged old Jost. For what? a missing eighth of a florin. They broke his fingers before they strung him up, said it was to remind the hands not to deceive. The crows picked him clean. You remember the bones, you always do. Now you pay, and pay, and pay. Once you ran your own numbers, carefully, day by day. You calculated the point at which your expenses surpassed your earnings. It came 2 winters ago. You're in debt now, technically. But they don't care about the numbers. Just the gesture, the performance of submission. As long as you bow, as long as you give. The moment you stop, they stop pretending to be human. You recall a town you passed through in spring, burned flat. Nothing but bones in ditches, and one sign left behind. It read, "Taxed unto silence." You didn't stop to ask what happened. You didn't need to. There's another tax no one mentions, the air. In some towns they charge for it, not officially, but you feel it. Smog Jews they call it in the mining boroughs. Lung toll in the cities. The coal-black fog eats the sun and stains the inside of your teeth. But it's coin to someone, always is. Your cousin in Norwich coughed herself to death before 20. The Lord said she owed a burial fee. You buried her behind the tannery. Shallow, unmarked, cheaper. They still found you, still find you. There are taxes on salt, taxes on doors, taxes on bridges, even ones you don't cross. A bishop once demanded coin for your future sins. You almost laughed, almost. But then you paid. Because what if he was right? Because hell isn't always after. Sometimes it collects early. You think about the boy you saw whipped for underpaying. He didn't cry until they started on his feet. Something about that sound. Wet leather against sole bone, shivering under skin. You still hear it when it rains. And yet you marvel there are always those who say it's for your own good. That taxation keeps order, that without it there would be chaos. You wonder what they call this. In summer, when grain is light, the collectors don't care. You owe what you owe. You trade your daughter's dowry, your tools, your wedding ring. One woman sells her teeth. Real ivory fetches more than bread. You see her smile in the market, a grin of red gums and defiance. She says, "Can't tax what I don't have." But you see her tremble when the guards pass. Even the toothless bleed. Once the collector is late. You think maybe he's dead. You dare to hope. You sell well that week. Spirits are high. You even allow yourself a meat pie. But on the 7th day he returns. 2 men shorter, 3 lashes deeper, and with a bag that doesn't jingle, it sloshes. You don't ask what's inside, you just pay, and lower your eyes. One night you dream of a room. Stone walls, no doors. Just a single slot in the ceiling. Each morning, a hand reaches down. You place your coin in it. It vanishes, and the hand waits. Even when you run out of coin, even when you offer blood, even when you offer nothing, it just waits, patient, hungry, infinite. You wake with a scream strangled in your throat. The next morning, a new tax is announced. Window light fee. If your stall receives more than 3 hours of daylight, you owe. You measure shadows now. The town carpenter makes a killing selling shutters. Light becomes expensive. So does laughter. One merchant jokes too loudly. He's fined for disturbing the king's peace. You learn to smile with your mouth closed, to speak in weights and hand signs, to hide your profit in plain sight. You switch to pine nuts and dried leeks. Cheaper, easier to disguise losses. You pray for bad weather. It dulls the senses, makes the collectors lazy. But on clear days they shine like copper turned sharp. They say the king's coffers are empty, that he wages war in the Holy Land, or Flanders, or somewhere that matters more than you. You wonder how many dead children a war costs. You don't ask, you just pay. Because here's the truth, you don't own anything. Not your cart, not your wares, not your breath, not your name. They all belong to the crown. And you're just leasing existence. You wonder what would happen if everyone stopped paying. If the whole market stood still, silent, unbending, but you know better. You know what would happen. You saw it in the ditches. You saw it in the fire-charred ruins. You saw it in your cousin's hollow eyes. There is no freedom. There is only the illusion of choice and the cost of defiance. The collector comes again at dusk. He takes your last shilling. He smiles, and this time he says, "See you next week." You nod, because you will, because you must, because taxation never ends, not even in death. You used to fear bandits. Now you fear the silence more. You walk roads too narrow for a horse cart, too crooked for patrols. The kind of roads that vanish from maps and reappear in stories told over firelight when voices lower without knowing why. The countryside is turning. The hills no longer roll green. They brood. Fields lie fallow not by neglect but by necessity. Farmers vanish. Whole villages go quiet. You pass a manor house with smoke rising from its blackened stones. No cries, no mourning, just crows. At first you think it's war, but the bodies say otherwise. No banners, no formations, just scattered things, personal things, a doll with no head, a shoe in a tree, a rib cage in a well. You don't ask questions anymore. You just sell, collect, leave. Even your route changes. Trade is no longer routine, it's a gamble. The towns shift like shadows. One week they buy cloth, the next they burn it. One day they praise foreign goods, the next they accuse you of heresy. You say what you must, smiling through your teeth, smiling until it hurts. You think back to the guild hall once so orderly, a tapestry of rules and weights and honorable trade. Now it's a den of whisperers, greedy men with ink-stained fingers and iron eyes. They've added a new ledger column, risk. Some things aren't worth selling anymore, like glass, or books, or spices that smell too exotic. Once you offered a bag of saffron. A woman shrieked, called it witch dust. You never carried saffron again. In one market you overhear a boy mutter, "Mother says merchants bring the plague." You turn. He stares back, unblinking. The word plague hangs in the air like smoke. You don't ask which one, you know better. There are whispers of a sickness in the southern ports. A merchant ship docked with its crew long dead. Rats the size of cats pouring off the decks. Buboes and fever and blackened tongues. They say it spreads faster than horses, faster than prayer, faster than guilt. In Calais, you see a man nailed to a door. His crime. He tried to leave. They said he had the signs. You didn't see any. But then, whoever does. Now every border has a checkpoint. Not for bandits, for breath. You get used to the inspections. The eyes that don't blink. The fingers that prod beneath your tongue. The priests sniffing for sin like hounds. You say the right words. Recite the prayers. Offer a coin to Saint Sebastian. Still they search you. They always do. Because you're a merchant. You move. And movement is suspicion. You hear rumors of whole cities sealed shut. Not under siege, under containment. Walls reinforced from the outside. Supplies dropped in by rope. Screams that fade over days. Or don't. You sell fewer perishables now. Nobody wants apples that might be infected. You switch to barrels of salt pork, dried fish. Anything that smells so foul it must be safe. You start dreaming of rats. Not in numbers, in patterns, circles, spirals, moving as one. You wake with your mouth full of fur. Just a dream, you tell yourself. But you stop sleeping near haystacks. In York, they burn the wharf. No explanation. Just flame. They say it's preventive. You watch the fire swallow goods worth 1,000 crowns. And the crowd cheers. You wonder who you are now. Not a merchant. Not anymore. You're a suspect with the ledger. A walking accusation. In one village they refuse to let you enter unless you strip. Completely. They burn your clothes after. You spend the next day wrapped in burlap. Even your boots are gone. You walk on raw feet for 3 days before a cobbler takes pity on you. The boots he gives you are from a dead man. They fit too well, too warm. The air changes. It smells of vinegar and rot. Church bells toll with no one around to ring them. You stop counting them. At some point they start sounding like laughter. In the next town, the streets are empty. Your wagon creaks louder than you remember. You call out. No answer. You knock on the tavern door. It swings open. Inside, still plates of food. Ale foaming in mugs. A lute with a broken string. No bodies, just absence. Like they evaporated. You don't take anything. Not even the coin spilled across the bar. Even you have limits. Even you know when something isn't yours. You leave. You don't stop until your mule collapses. By then it's dark. The stars have changed. You can't explain it. They're wrong. Off by just enough. You sit beside your cart, your wares untouched. Nobody buys anymore. Not really. You trade, you beg, you survive. A figure approaches, ragged cloak, gloved hands, mask of painted wood. No words, just a gesture. You nod. You hand over a sack of barley. They place something in your palm. You don't look until they vanish. It's a single coin, heavy, cold. One side bears a skull, the other a mirror. You don't know what it means, but you carry it anyway. Because what else can you do? You're a merchant. You carry things, even when you shouldn't, even when they follow you, even when they're curses in disguise. You hear a phrase again and again. The roads are closing, not blocked, not guarded. Closing, like veins, like doors, like mouths. One day you see the sun rise in the west. No one mentions it. No one seems to notice. You keep walking, because you're a merchant, and merchants move. Even when the world stops turning, even when the coins scream, even when your own name begins to fade. You don't recognize the coinage anymore. It started subtly. A crest changed here, a king's face redrawn there. Then, a copper that didn't weigh quite right. Silver that burned when held too long. Gold that melted, even when cold. You now test every coin with your tongue. That was never in the guild training. Trade used to be about values, weights, equity. Now it's superstition wrapped in silver. In one town, they refuse payment, unless it bears the emblem of a crescent moon. In another, they only accept coins with holes through the center strung like charms against something no one names. You've seen a man choked to death with his own purse string. Strings. He tried to pass off a foreign denier. The butcher said the metal whispered when heated. You didn't ask what it said. Now you carry 5 kinds of currency, and none of them work everywhere. Some of them might not be real. You've stopped trusting your own purse. One night in a tavern carved directly into the bones of an old abbey, a man shows you a coin that isn't a coin at all. It's flat and black, lightless, cold. You'll need this, he says, for what you ask. He doesn't blink. For the toll. You never see him again. But the thing stays in your satchel. It hums if you put it near water. And once, while crossing a bridge, It leapt out of your hand and vanished. The bridge collapsed the next day. You think that might have been mercy. The roads you once loved, those endless ribbons of trade and promise, are now trails of ash and teeth. You come across caravans frozen mid-journey, as if their last breath clung to the air. Donkeys harnessed to nothing, wheels sunken in red mud, tents collapsing around bones with clenched jaws. You don't stop anymore, not even for the dead, especially not for the dead. The river towns are the worst. The water is wrong, not foul, not fetid, just still, too still. You watch a fish swim backward. You watch another rise belly up but still staring at you. You haven't drank from a river in weeks. You stick to rain, when it comes, and when it doesn't, you wait. You once carried dyes from Lucca, rich purples, deep crimsons, golden saffron blended with oil. Now if you unstoppered one of those vials, it would melt the cork, and your fingers, and perhaps the floor beneath it. You traded beauty. Now you barter in things too ugly to speak of. In the north, you encounter a market with no stalls, just people standing in rows, not speaking, holding objects in their hands, feathers bloodied, rope eyes in jars. A barter of symbols. You approach cautiously. A woman holds up a wooden hand. You offer a bolt of linen. She tilts her head. You offer 3. She shakes. You offer the coin, the one with the mirror. She smiles, takes it, hands you the hand. You still carry it. It fits too well. That night you dream of transactions that never end, lines that loop. You pay for food that rots in your mouth. You pay for shelter that collapses at dusk. You pay to breathe, and you pay again to exhale. Each breath taxed, each blink tallied. Your dream self dies in debt. You wake gasping. The wooden hand grips your own. You burn it. Of course you burn it. But the smell follows you for days. You used to track your earnings meticulously. Now your ledger is a history of horrors. It lists things you no longer remember trading. 2 nights of safe sleep, 1 whisper. Passage across black field, 1 lie. Meal with no questions, 1 tooth. You check your mouth. Still 32, but you can't recall the taste of bread. You dream of warmth, but wake to frost. Even in midsummer. At a crossroad you find a signpost with all the names scraped off, scratched over with the word nowhere. You pick a path. They all lead to the same place. Eventually, you return to your city, the one you left years ago. You barely recognize it. The gates are open but not in welcome. They hang broken. The guards are gone. Inside echoes. Shops with empty windows. Stone streets choked in vines. Bells that ring without touch. You pass the hall where your guild once met. The seal is melted across the door. You press your hand to it. Cold. It shouldn't be cold in the sun. Inside, a single candle burns in the center of the floor. Beside it, a mirror. Your reflection doesn't move. You kneel. You speak. It listens. Then it opens its mouth and says, "Trade accepted." You run. You don't remember leaving. But you wake outside the city, in your cart. All your wares replaced. New things, older than anything you've ever sold. Things that look back. You try to throw them away, but each morning they return. Back in their places. Back in your hands. Back in your dreams. You now sell them to anyone who will take them. Not for profit, for survival. To pass the curse forward. You tell yourself this is mercy. You even smile when they buy. They always thank you. Sometimes with words. Sometimes with silence. Sometimes with tears. One girl handed you her doll and whispered, Take this to the place with no names. You asked where that was. She pointed behind you. You didn't turn around. You're a merchant. You move forward, even when the roads rot beneath you, even when your own name fades from the books, even when the only customer left is death. And it always pays on time. You reach the coast by accident, not by plan, not by map, by something older, like when birds fall silent before a storm. You feel the pull before you see the water. The sea stinks of salt and something deeper. Not rot, but memory. It isn't the blue you remember from childhood. It's darker now, as if stained with the ink of all your ledgers, soaked in every silent deal, every half-truth traded under moonlight. You sit by the shore and wait for what you don't know. The wind is heavy here, like breath on your neck. You feel watched, but there's no one. Just gulls with too many eyes and boats that rock but never dock. One night one comes. A vessel carved from something that was never wood. Bone maybe, or horn. It doesn't creak. It hums. No crew, no flag. Just a single symbol on the mast, a hand palm down, pressed into the fabric. You know it's here for you. You load your cart. It swallows your goods in silence. Then yourself. The moment your feet touch the deck, you understand you're not a merchant anymore. You're cargo. The ship doesn't move. The world moves around it. Coastlines bleed past. Stars spin wrong. You pass islands without names and ports that whisper in forgotten tongues. Once you see a city underwater, its towers still lit, its people walking upside down beneath the waves. None of them look up. Your ship never stops. Not for food, not for sleep. It feeds on time itself. You count the days by the hairs turning grey in your beard. You speak to no one. But sometimes, something answers. The sails flutter without wind. The deck pulses when you walk. The mast weeps sap that smells of old parchment and fresh blood. You find a crate with your name carved in a language you've never written. Inside nothing, yet it's heavier than anything you've ever lifted. You leave it sealed. You reach a place where maps end, a sea of ice that isn't cold, a horizon that loops. Here the ship finally moors, but not to any dock, to a house, a single wooden house floating in the middle of nowhere, its chimney curling smoke that spells out stories you've almost forgotten. The door opens. You step inside. It's your childhood home, exactly as you left it. Even the same cracked cup on the windowsill, even the scent of boiled cabbage and wax. You turn. Your cart is already there, unpacked, displayed, wares aligned neatly on dusty shelves. You're expected. You blink, and a customer waits, eyes black, mouth stitched. They place something on the counter, a dream you once had of peace. You give them a silver bell that rings with no sound. They nod. Transaction complete. They vanish. Another enters, then another. You serve them all, endlessly. Some are human, most aren't. A man made of moths, a child who blinks wrong, a shadow that leaves footprints. Each brings something forgotten. Each takes something vital. And you stay. You can't leave the house. The moment you step outside, you're back inside. Even if you jump out the window, the ground vanishes and you fall through your own roof. The house is patient, and the line never ends. Your cart restocks itself. You're not sure how. One day you find an object that shouldn't exist. A letter, folded once, addressed to you in your own hand. You open it. It reads, "This is where the road ends." Below it a list. Every trade you ever made, including ones you don't remember. At the bottom, balance owed. It's blank. You're afraid to ask why. The next customer hands you a mirror. It doesn't reflect. Not at first. Then slowly, it shows you. Not as you are. As you were. Before trade. Before roads. Before the itch in your palms that told you the world could be bought and sold. You drop the mirror. It doesn't break. It laughs, softly, like a till closing. Later, you try to burn the house. It laughs too. The fire turns inward spirals into itself and leaves a single coin behind. The black one. The one from before. The one you thought you lost. You touch it. You wake up. In the market, as if none of it happened. But your fingers are blackened, and your coin pouch hums. You sell things now that don't make sense. A bag of sleep, a tongue that remembers, a candle that never lights, but always burns. People come, people pay, and always they thank you. You smile, you think, maybe this is what you deserve. Maybe it was never about gold, or trade, or roads. Maybe it was always about debt. And the universe never forgets its ledgers. Even gods must settle accounts. Especially gods. And you've met a few. You sell their bones now. They don't mind. They know the rules. The customer is always right. You close up shop for the night. Lock the doors. Snuff the lantern. But the flame doesn't go out. You stare. It flares once like a wink. And you understand. You never left the house. You never will. The ship, the road, the market, all of it was inside. And you are the merchant, forever, whether you wish it or not. And so the tale dwindles, not with fire, not with ruin, but with a slow decay like parchment curling at the edges, ink fading in damp air. You don't die, you just become. A fixture, a whisper, a cautionary tale passed between trembling lips in dark alleyways beneath oil lamps that sputter at your name. They say you still sell long after death, that the cart rolls without wheels, that your goods carry the weight of memory. No one remembers your face, only your eyes. The way they don't blink. You could have walked away once, turned back, closed the ledger, lived. But that was never you. You had to know what lay at the next crossroad, what price the soul fetches in bulk, what dreams look like when bottled. You learned too much, and now you teach. They come to you wide-eyed and desperate, and you give them what they want, never what they need. Because what they need, you lost that long ago. So the tale ends, not with death, but with the door creaking open, with footsteps echoing across warped floorboards, with a single question, how much, and your voice low and certain replies, what do you have? You thought you were safe, didn't you?